people can watch all these fuck ups and trickery by NASA and all these other space agencies, and all that goes out the window because they see a little light in the sky and it's the ISS. Oh yeah, that's the ISS. That's all the proof they need, and everything else goes out the window.
The view will still be A-OK out there, and all you need to look for is a bright light in the sky that will be moving, and that'll be the space station.
I've seen the light go from horizon to horizon. There's many problems with that light. First, it's as bright as the sun. It's really bright. How is the ISS reflecting that light as bright as the sun back to me the whole way across? Is it made of mirrors? Is that mirror following me? Right? How would somebody 10 miles away see the same reflection, because it can't reflect in all directions? It's going 17,500 miles an hour. For 12 minutes I could see it. So what is it? I was in communication with a NASA whistleblower, and he says that they have 5 B-2 bombers that they've modified with some parts of them are transparent material with a thin metal struts that you really can't see. The bottom was overlaid with LEDs to match the color of the sun, and they use them in their base. 2 of them are in Alaska, and I forget where the other ones are, and they take turns doing these flybys.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'd like to bring to your attention a potential fraud on an enormous scale happening in York County. There's now clear evidence of NASA using numerous methods to grossly mislead the public about astronauts being on the International Space Station. During interior ISS scenes from NASA's own live feed, the use of wires, harnesses, green screens, and virtual reality have been detected to achieve the appearance of a weightless environment. This begs the obvious question. If they're really up there, why are they using Hollywood techniques to fake the footage? Are they in space or are they underwater? Now, what's really interesting is that they train for spacewalks in an underwater pool with a complete ISS replica. Now, surely they aren't filming these spacewalks in an underwater pool and then editing them to appear if they're in space, because that sure would be something, wouldn't it? I'm calling on the Brevard County Commissioners to open a full investigation into NASA's fraudulent practices and use of taxpayer dollars. It costs NASA $3 billion per year to operate the ISS, and if they don't have a darn good explanation as to why they're faking these videos, I and the public would like a darn good explanation as to where our tax money is going. It is our duty to expose and eliminate this fraudulent and astronomically wasteful ISS program. And look, I know what you're all thinking. The NASA is part of the federal government and you're just county commissioners. Even if what I'm saying is true, what can you do? But let me remind you, not only is this happening in your county, as public officials, you have the platform and the ability to make a statement or hold a press conference, alerting the public, state, and federal authorities to investigate further. You have the power to start the conversation. I look forward to the day that $3 billion annual budget is put towards our veterans, our homeless, maybe some of that mental health stuff the young lady just spoke about, and the revitalization of Brevard County.
Flat Earthers pay attention. We're paying attention to NASA. We're paying attention to SpaceX. Most people aren't, but yet they'll defend it. They'll defend it. They have no idea the Earth's supposed radius. They have no idea how far the sun is supposed to be according to NASA, 93 million. They don't know. They're like, how far is the sun? Like, I don't know, a couple million miles, I don't know. They have no idea, but they're defending it to the death. You know, once you start paying attention and have an open mind, pay attention. advantage ever.
But we do want to make sure that the American people understand that there's no need to panic. The president took this action, as I mentioned earlier, because the objects were indeed flying at lower elevation and they were in civilian airspace. And we wanted to make sure that we protected that airspace. But again, we want to also make sure that the Americans are not, do not panic during this time.
Wait, what? It's on a balloon? Why is there a satellite on a balloon? It's always been that way. Flat Earthers have been talking about this for a long time.
One thing that isn't really discussed in the mainstream is that NASA, of course we know, spends more money on helium than anyone else in the world, and actually just upped their most recent contract to hundreds of millions of dollars for helium. And they admittedly launched balloons bigger than 1 to 2 football fields. And it's significantly more efficient for transmission of data, for weather compilation of data. They basically have a fleet of balloons above you that are facilitating majority of the information that we utilize.
So why do you think NASA is the world's largest consumer of helium? Why would they send up balloons, these satellites, on balloons if they're in magical floating space, in the magical floating vacuum of space? They're showing us, they're telling you right now, they're telling us in plain sight, hey look, satellites are on balloons, they're not in magical space. Right here at this research center. Okay, this loud truck, yeah. I know they're gonna make the noise. Okay.
Howdy. I was just doing some filming. What? Oh, just anything we can see. We're just doing a documentary on the balloon launches and all the cool stuff.
Yeah, we're independent journalists.
Don't be filming me. What else? Come on. Well, I mean, we're in public. There's no expectation of privacy. Well, we tried to call them. They said they weren't doing any tours. Yeah, they said we weren't doing any tours.
Hey, of course, you got to do your due diligence and make sure there ain't nobody out here potting shit.
Yeah, well,
I get it.
Like Johnson Space Center, they have armed guards. Yeah, they will shoot you.
Yeah, they definitely
Do not
operate.
do not run up in the air.
Yeah,
like you're gonna
very
do
nice.
No, we're just
Appreciate you coming
infatuated
out.
with the satelloons, you know.
Yeah,
We didn't even know they existed. It's cool that they're all going up on balloons. We didn't even know. We were taught, they're just orbiting by themselves.
Or they're shot up with rockets.
Yeah, they're shot up with that's all.
It makes
is.
more
And I'm
sense
like,
on a balloon, so we're like, okay, well, this
Yeah,
makes
and I don't
sense
know.
now.
Unless they got some top secret stuff I don't know about.
You don't know about any of these satellites without the balloons?
The idea that you would need some type of box that free falls in orbit around a ball is really just a fiction of imagination. That we don't need that at all. We don't utilize that.
Satellites have been on balloons since the 50s, and they've always been on balloons. They just lied about putting them in space. There's no evidence at all of satellites in space.
They would have to have a propulsion system. Even if you believe that the Earth is a ball, you must also believe that satellites cannot propel themselves without a source to thrust. Okay? We know that they don't have engines on them. What's making them go around? They don't make sense. Then you find out NASA owns 98% of the helium. Then you find out all these satellites that crash have balloons attached to them. Then you can deduce they actually float these satellites up with balloons. It's that simple. If all these satellites are moving 17,500 miles an hour, some are moving this way, some are moving that way, it's common sense. There's 50,000 of them. They're supposed to hit each other eventually, but none of them hit each other. Come on, guys, wake up. There's no satellites. There's no proof of them. The only proof we have are things floating on balloons.
Arthur C. Clarke in the 50s wrote a book theorizing about satellites falling around on Earth in an endless fall. Shortly after, we all of a sudden had satellites falling around the Earth. Now think about it. The Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. It's orbiting in an elliptical orbit, speeding up and slowing down at 66,000 miles an hour. It's chasing the sun in another curved orbit, and we somehow have geostationary satellites. That's a satellite that stays above the same plot of land. So it's mimicking the spin, it's mimicking the orbit, it's speeding up and slowing down and staying over that same plot of land, and it's just falling in an ever-ending fall. That makes absolutely no sense.
And now it's openly accepted that they're on balloons, but they're making it seem like it's a new thing. And this is the new way we're gonna launch satellites, is on balloons, and it's cheaper and it's just better. Like, we don't need them space ones no more. You know, people are starting to figure it out. That's why they're going back to balloons.
And majority of all the transmissions we use for our cell phones or quote-unquote satellite TV are all ground towers. They all send transmissions from the ground tower to tower, admittedly at high elevations. And of course we have underground and undersea cables that make up 99.9% of all transmission. So this just a facade in people's mind that you have little metal boxes flying around giving you all of your data. None of that is real.
Oh my God, I'm calling my brother. That is freaking beautiful. Okay, there you have it. Artemis wow, it's flying right now.
Whether it's the ISS or the rocket launch, the second someone sees it with their own eyes, they think it's real.
This is freaking amazing. Oh, there it is. What the heck happened?
They don't even know what the fuck's going on.
The reason that you can always find a video of a rocket from NASA taking off and then slowly making a U-shaped arc is not because it's going around the ball and going to the other side or going out into space. It's because shortly after these rockets that are funded by your tax dollars take off, they only have a certain amount of time before they crash back to the Earth because they run out of fuel. It's all made up. So what really happens is they launch them near the ocean in Texas or in Florida. They will never launch a rocket from the middle of the country. It won't make it to the ocean. It'll crash on dry land. Okay? So NASA has to launch rockets from Texas and Florida because it's right by the water. If they wanted to launch a rocket from Little Rock, Arkansas, it wouldn't even make it to Texarkana.
So when they launch rockets in Cape Canaveral, Florida, or in Houston, we have a problem. Yeah, the problem is you can't get past the firmament.
In 1962, 7 years before they faked the moon landing, Operation Dominic began. A series of 31 missiles were shot straight up into the sky to test how high humans can actually reach. They quickly figured out not far at all.
It seems that whenever they were shooting these missiles up into the sky, they were actually interacting with different layers of this plasma field or this electromagnetic phenomena, and it seems to have fluid-like properties. As it actually hits a certain portion of this force field, if you will, it begins to disperse and seek equilibrium based on the impedance of the electromagnetic layers.
Why is it when we review this footage that these things are exploding? It looks like they're hitting a barrier.
Testing the strength of the firmament, and they weren't able to penetrate it.
What's going on there? What is this? In my opinion, I think that they were trying to find a way to possibly get out. There's a firmament above us.
So everything is as above, so below. Obviously, many people are becoming aware that there's a firmament above that many people are now starting to realize is impenetrable.
No matter what you do, you can't go straight up in the air and keep going.
An interesting rocket launch was the amateur Go Fast rocket. They gave us something that NASA and SpaceX never gives us, an uninterrupted feed from their camera. If you watch a NASA launch or a SpaceX launch, there's 4, 5, 6 cuts before it even clears the launch pad. Gave us an uninterrupted 72 miles, I think. Went up, and all of a sudden it went kerplunk, it hit something.
It went up, and it appears to have hit the firmament.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth.
There's no place to go.
There is water surrounding us in all directions, including directly above us. We now know that there's something called superfluid that exists. You could have helium-3, and it could actually offer full electromagnetic propagation perpetually without any impedance. Based on the things that I see, such as Crow 777's lunar wave observations, I think that there is clearly a fluid-like medium above us.
The waters above in ancient astronomy, which was the same science as astrology, except one was more theological and one was more secular, they taught that this was called the crystalline sea. And in the book of Revelation, it speaks about the crystalline sea. It's the ninth heaven. The waters above, it's firm.
I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming that there is a fluid-like medium above us.
What I can tell you for sure is the water above is level, because all water finds and maintains level.
I feel that's the next wave of enlightenment, is now more and more people realizing as above, so below. And the only way we can get above or below is to go within and tune our frequency to that of which surpasses and passes through.
Who knows, maybe there is some kind of firmament, and we're underwater. We could be underwater. Maybe there's water above the firmament and then water down here.
That could possibly be why the sky is blue, because behind it is the firmament which holds back water.
As above, so below. God's throne does not sit on a convex, silly snow globe, okay? The firmament, the waters above, where he separated the waters below from above, they're flat and level. It's the sky plane. The sky only appears to curve, just like the ground. There is no curvature in the sky. There's no curvature on the earth.
Well, Dave, the SpaceX Falcon 9 is going to launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base, and it's going to launch in just about a minute, maybe a little less here. Just see the trail it's leaving behind. Absolutely amazing, and to describe it to you from, I mean, you can see it, but from the ground, it almost looks as though
some of these rockets look like they're scraping across a watery firmament, kind of like a boat dragging something through the water.
You see what resembles a speedboat going through water. You'll see the rocket hit the firmament, explode like watery, and then it will skim along the surface of the firmament. Why is that? Well, because it's hydrogen. It's water.
I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're not flying into space.
It's almost like they're just throwing it in your face. Look, we're running into a solid barrier. These rockets literally look like they're bouncing off the ocean, like a boat in the ocean, creating waves. Look at it. Look at the footage. Look at that. They're putting it in our face. It's soft disclosure. They can't just come out and say there's a firmament, so we're on a flat earth or whatever else. They can't just come out and say it. They have to show breadcrumbs. They got to show a trail of breadcrumbs. They have to boil the frog slowly.
People say, well, what's under the flat earth? Because they're thinking of a disk floating in space. We don't know what's under the flat earth because the deepest hole is 7.8 miles. And while they were digging that hole, while they were drilling that hole, they were using ground penetrating radar to see what they're going to hit next. And they were wrong every step of the way. No more rocks, no more water. They hit rocks, they hit water, right? They were wrong. And then they hit an impenetrable barrier. They tried for years to get through and they couldn't. And then they gave up. But then somehow we have a meme that shows us a cross-section of the earth, the next 4,000 miles. They know exactly what's there. They couldn't get the first 7.8 miles right, but they know the next 4,000. And everyone's seen the meme of the earth with the molten magnetic core. Another thing that they're laughing at us, because you can't have a molten magnet. Any magnet of any type, you heat it up, and before it melts, it hits the Curie point, and it loses all its magnetism.
Have y'all heard about the recent claim from the heliocentric priests? They're saying that the core has stopped spinning and it's now spinning the opposite direction, which is going to cause all this chaos.
Well, this morning we are learning about a shift in the Earth's inner core that sounds like the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster. Scientists say our planet's solid core, which is actually disconnected from the rest of the Earth's layers, may actually have stopped rotating and could even reverse course. What does this mean?
Well, at first it sounds like something from a Hollywood movie.
Right.
The script says, oh my God, the core of the Earth is spinning backwards.
How do they know this? I just want to know, how do they know what the core is doing if they've only been down 8 miles? How is that possible? We've only, as humans, dug down a maximum depth of 8 miles. How do they know what's 3,000 miles down? Makes no sense.
So if you look at a magnetic field on our ferrocell, you have something called the inertial plane or the block domain wall. That would be where we reside. We live within a magnetic field. And you can only go so far down before you're actually going to have the reciprocation of that energy or that magnetic field. We know the deepest hole ever dug is around 7.8 miles, which seemingly correlates to the deepest area in the ocean, of course, the Mariana Trench. So the way that I see it is you're actually living on the inertial plane within the magnetic field, which actually then begins to make all celestial phenomena fit perfect within the toroid. And of course, this entire idea that there's this magic magma core made of nickel and iron that's spinning at a different speed than the Earth spins is a complete fiction made up of seismic activity and speculation. And actually, when you look further into that, they say that that causes the magnetic field with something called convection currents. You have the geomagnetic field from the geodynamo model, and actually you would have a symmetrical magnetic field coming from the core. As it is a sphere, you would have the same magnetic field in the north and the south. But what the evidence actually shows is that it is not symmetrical at all, and in the south the magnetic field gets up to 30% weaker. There's something called the South Atlantic anomaly, which shows that it 100% is not some symmetrical dynamo effect causing the magnetic field. If you actually look further into the dynamo model, there's about 50 questions that have gone unanswered. They can't even get the math to work with supercomputers. It's pure speculation that they can't get to work, and it seems that actually we are just prohibited from going too far down based on pressure mediation within a magnetic field.